4, 3, 2, 1. I told you before to be careful where you put your legs.
I was only trying to be helpful.
I can help myself. What are you waiting for? Come on. Come on. What are you waiting for? Come on. Come on.
For 7 decades, Michael Caine has been among the world's most renowned and recognisable actors.
It was just what I needed. A 1-inch god with a 2-inch penis.
Star of classics like Zulu, The Man Who Would Be King, and The Cider House Rules.
It's a miracle no one was killed.
But also films that brought his career to the brink of complete implosion.
I made a mistake.
Somehow, he has always found a way back.
You're a big man, but you're in bad shape. With me, it's a full-time job.
In this epic podcast series, we will watch and review every Michael Caine movie, from the greatest hits...
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off!
...to the incredible misses.
You failed to maintain your weapon, son.
And take a deep dive into the life and work of one of the world's most recognisable film stars.
His name is Michael Caine, and no one will forget his name.
Behave yourself.
To understand how he has made the mark of Caine.
Well, you all settled in? Right, we can begin. For God's sake, come in!
Hello and welcome to The Mark of Caine, our trek through the highways and the byways of the film career of Michael Caine, pausing to take in every movie and figure out what the good ones tell us about what makes Caine such a star and what the bad ones tell us about a man with the most varied CV in cinema history. I'm joined as always on this trek by Stephen Black, the creator and chief artistic director of the Mallow News Twitter account, which is still your one-stop shop to be amused and repulsed, possibly all at the same time. And of course also you have the Mallow News book that's out and about in your shops and online and everywhere else you want to get your books. But today is a big one. Today we're hitting the big time. This is the movie that made the man. This is the moment that Michael Caine became Michael Caine. This is Alfie.
Get your knee off the steering wheel!
I can't, I'm stuck.
Here, look out, I'll do it.
Oh!
Well, you all settled in? Right, we can begin. My name is...
Alfie!
Alfie.
Alfie, bubbles with impudent humor and ripe modern wit, says the New York Times.
I was having a beautiful little life. There was this manageress of a dry cleaners. And I was getting a suit cleaned in the bargain.
Everybody's running after Alfie.
Do you love me?
What can I say when you ask? You shouldn't ask, you know. I'll tell you when I feel like it.
Would you like me to give you something to make you sleep?
Now, there's a good idea.
All right, then. Come with me.
Stephen, this is the one, isn't it? This is it now. Oscars, parties, global fame, all the fun stuff starts for Michael Caine here now. This is, like, I hate the word icon. I think it's used so flippantly now. But this plus Ipcris, to a much lesser extent, this is like 10 plus 1 plus 1. It's like 10 Alfie plus 1 Ipcris plus 1 Zulu makes him into a global superstar. This is it now.
Yeah, and I mean, if Alfie was the movie that trailer promised, I would have been delighted rather than fucking loading every single minute of it. You know already, I fucking hated this movie. Hated every single second of it. Couldn't wait for it to be over. It's just, I know you listen to the trailer, you kind of go, oh, it's a knockabout sex comedy with, cheeky chappy Michael Caine, and he's going to be, bedding girls left, right, etc. And it's all in good fun. And it fucking isn't. There is nothing in good fun. So I know we've just listened to the trailer, but I just want to read out a few quotes from the movie poster. It's a rave. Often wildly funny. Rich, ripe, randy portrait of a Cockney Casanova. It's dead funny.
Yeah.
My own personal favourites are from the foreign language version. So,
okay.
In todo hombre hay un Alfie. This is inside every man. There's an Alfie, and el seductor irresistible. So I'm assuming it's the Spanish. Seductor irresistible, muy irresistible.
Yeah,
and then the French one, which is a bit baffling for me, and it was "C'est jouer après l'été," no?
Okay.
Which it's cool after tea, isn't it?
Oh,
so I don't know. Is this something I'm missing out in the kind of the the criteria for French sex at the time was that, in France we don't have sex after tea because we're usually talking about politics or something like that. Whereas in Britain, this guy's gas, he will have sex after tea.
I don't know.
Or because he's British, you have to have tea first and then sex later.
And then sex later. Maybe there's a bit of touch of afternoon delight, wasn't it? Always that's love in the afternoon in France is when you have your affairs, isn't it? I think it's something like that.
If men have their cinq six, the 5 to 6 is your time for your mistress.
You're way ahead of me on this stuff. Way ahead. Look. It has to be said at the outset, and this will apply to a lot of Caine movies in the coming decade or so that we're going through. We are coming to this and we're allowing for the era, and we're allowing for different kind of forms of humor, different outlooks, different attitudes, everything, right? Without giving up our own 21st century attitudes towards things, right? That has to be said, and we did apply this to Alfie, didn't we? Like you're saying you hated every second of it, but you hated every second of it as much as you could through the prism of watching it as a 60s movie that has been since considered as one of Caine's most iconic roles, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, we're trying to make as much of an effort to view it through the prism of the time that it was filmed, but I just found it really, really difficult in this instance because his character is so unlikable. There is nothing likable at all. He's a complete
Alfie!
Just in case anybody's wondering why I just said Alfie, we've made a decision because his character is so repulsive that we will be using a 5-letter word for a very popular but unfortunate 4-letter word.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. Like he is without doubt one of the most repulsive screen characters I've ever come across, and I don't care actually whether you're watching it in 1965, 66, or in 2021. There was more there was more than enough there to be appalled by him in any era. What I thought was interesting was, there was this sense at the time, you look back at the reviews, that the element of breaking the fourth wall, which is where Alfie very often turns to the camera and tells you what's going on in his head or tells you what he's thinking, somehow was seen as a way of endearing him to the audience, when most of the time he was just backing up precisely what he was doing on screen.
Well, he makes you complicit. It's almost involving you in the car crash and involving you in the terrible things that he's doing. It's by taking you into his confidence. It's gross.
Now, I have to say, before we go any further, right? I mean, you hated it. I didn't hate it. I just thought, I kind of found it bizarrely compelling watching it. Now, it's as you said there, it's billed as a kind of a romantic comedy drama, which is kind of three massive genres there that you can go into.
But it's not billed as a drama at all. Every single poster review I said is that they'll kind of throw in when responsibility rears its head, then Alfie begins to take life more seriously. So which he fucking doesn't.
Not really, no, that doesn't really happen. Like he, I didn't laugh once during it. And funny enough, when I was just scribbling out kind of the plot outline for the purposes of this. Again, I'll go through it now. I defy anybody to find any kind of comedy potential in any of the stuff that happens here, right? But
bizarrely uneven. Yeah, even things that are played for kind of really slapstick, like his love scene with Shelley Winters on the couch where they hilariously tumble off that, or even the bar fight.
There's a bar run brawl. Yeah,
with the piece of sped up photography where a guy gets hilariously launched through the air and his head lands in through a window or whatever, and it is framed that way, like something you'd see in a fucking in a Western comedy from the fucking 40s.
Yeah, it all falls flat to these eyes and ears anyway. So yeah, look, just to go through the plot, and I think this is one of these, often occurs to me, Alfie is rolled out as a Michael Caine classic, a standard, I often wonder how many people have actually watched this film and just, or are we just conditioned now to go, Michael Caine, Alfie, that was one of his great roles.
Well, I think we know who the people who watched this film were the people at the time, they're the directors and producers of the time who decided that this is a performance that was strong enough. Like, we'll get at these performances, and there's nothing wrong with these performances in this, and you can see why it would have made such an impact.
Yeah,
but the film itself is dreadful. But this is what put him on people's radars. It was the Oscar nomination and all that made him, made him a star essentially.
It does. It's so fast, and it's such a fast turnaround from zero to this. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Will I go through the plot? Do you want to say anything before I go on?
No, by all means, just fucking,
Get it out of the way.
Go on.
Okay, so Alfie is Alfie Elkins. He's a chauffeur by trade. He's just a complete narcissist, selfish, self-centered guy. He gets involved with any woman that crosses his path, married or single, doesn't really matter. Treats them all like dirt, calls them it. So a lot of the time when he's talking about women, it's it does this, it does that, it's good for this, it's not good for that, whatever. He does have a girlfriend called Gilda who's submissive, and she's also pregnant. But he cheats on her all the time. Initially, I don't think he wants to keep the baby, but when Gilda wants to keep the child, it's christened Malcolm Alfred, which he doesn't like either. But when the baby is born, he becomes very attached to his son. And so this is a kind of like a vehicle to show Alfie's, softer side, that there is some good in here kind of thing. Doesn't really work for me, to be honest. Gilda is also being courted by Humphrey, who's a very solid but very dull, soppy sort of bus conductor. Eventually, she kind of succumbs to his charms, in inverted commas, or his I suppose, his stability, marries him, and tells Alfie, "No, you can't see the child anymore, get out of here." Around the same time, Alfie's health goes down, his shadows on the lungs. He spends 6 months in a sanatorium where he hooks up with a nurse, and subsequently the wife of one of the patients in there, a guy called Harry, and her name is Lily. So Harry, in the course of various conversations in the sanatorium, tries to get through to Alfie that his life is sort of empty and so on and so forth. Doesn't really work. When Alfie comes out, he gets a job taking photographs around the Tower of London. And in the course of that, he meets this sort of older American woman, a lust box, he calls her Ruby. So he has a bit of time with her. Lust box, I have to say, is something that reminds me of something you see in a very, very sleazy takeaway menu.
Yeah, definitely breast in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So he goes back chauffeuring eventually, hooks up with another girl called Annie, who's played by Jane Asher, who we'll come back to later on. She's a hitchhiker who's bothered by a previous relationship, and that's kind of playing in her head a lot. But she literally ends up scrubbing Alfie's floors, and that's not a euphemism. She's literally scrubbing his floors. In the course of around the same time, he finds out that Lily, who was married to Harry in the sanatorium, has gotten pregnant. So it's time for a backstreet abortion, which is a harrowing experience, obviously, for Lily. But Alfie still finds time to head off outside because, sure, what else would you be doing? So he heads off, comes back, having run into the baptism of Gilda and Humphrey's baby daughter. So he sees Malcolm, his son, from distance and sees this happy family unit, comes back to his flat where poor Lily is curled up on a couch, tells him don't go into the kitchen. He goes into the kitchen and he sees the aborted fetus, and this has a huge impact on him, tears, etc., etc. He goes off, talks to one of his mates, kind of has an epiphany of sorts, in that he goes back to the American Ruby to settle down with this older woman. But of course, when he gets there, he finds out that she's after hooking up with an even younger man, which of course tells us that Alfie's life itself is finite, and all that he believes in actually won't last forever at all, despite what he thinks. So all ends up with him near Tower Bridge, wandering along. He meets an old flame who's gone back to settle down with her husband, who doesn't show much interest in him again, and he has the famous line about life. What's it all about? And that's pretty much where it's left, on that philosophical note.
Yeah, again, this attempts to kind of layer this level of philosophy and existential angst onto a character who's just
Alfie!
doesn't in any way kind of display that type of depth. I mean, even this kind of epiphany he has after the abortion, it's all focused on him. It's not in any way does he show any empathy towards like Lily or any other woman in the. He's all about himself. There's no scope for change. He will not change. He's a sociopath.
The only thing he does is try and raise the £25 it costs to have the abortion. So because initially she had to pay for it, of course, but then he gets a dose of conscience and tries to, trade his watch, I think, or something for 25 quid. That's it.
Yeah. But that's it. It's actually, there's really no change. He's incapable of change. How he reacts to it. I mean, it doesn't. This whole declaration of love for Ruby isn't really. It's not even a real thing. It's just him reacting to a bad experience, thinking, "Oh, this will give me what I want." But it's going to be a short-term solution for him. He's just going to. He's locked in a cycle. He's not capable of growth. He's just a man-child. He's just fucking appalling. And he's deserving of, this is the worst thing about it. Nothing really bad happens to him in this movie when you think about it, really. It happens to the women that he has a relationship. They all suffer from being with him. I mean, except with the I suppose with the exception of his like the first girlfriend that were introduced, at least she gets out and she goes off and she settles for the man who loves her, but she's crazy about in order to have that stable family life that Alfie won't give her. But everyone else, like Jane Asher's character, Jesus Christ, they're all blank slates for him to slates for him to just fucking project onto. Like and
she particularly plays that blank slate well. And I think, and her and Gilda, her original girlfriend, I think, and I don't think it's I think it's a very good performance by both of them as a blank slate. Like, I don't think that would be their normal setting. You know what I mean? She plays it very well. This kind of blank, kind of slightly lost northerner down in London, and she's completely under this guy's thumb.
But it's the fact that she's picked up by a lorry driver, and it's taken for granted that she is now his property.
Yeah,
and Alfie steals her from him because she's fucking chattel. Despite it's 1966 now. It's not fucking 1946. This is the mid 60s. This is the so-called sexual revolution is supposed to be under its way. You've got the contraceptive pill is now freely available. Mm-hmm. Women are supposed to be out there enjoying a more a world with, let's say, where they have more access to sexual exploration or freedom that they would have before. But this is completely through the prism of this lad who is, I suppose in this film, 1966, he's 30. So no interest in popular music, nothing like that. He's very much a lad who grew up in the 50s. Dresses like, when he's courting, dresses like Alan Partridge going to a yacht club. Even has the fucking captain's jacket. Like, he's completely out of time. And words fail me in terms of how this was considered such a classic movie. For me, I was expecting, okay, Caine will be very good in this, and there will be something to this that I will enjoy. I just fucking know. For the first 5 minutes, it took me a good 30 seconds when he was talking about it to realize that he was referring to the woman that he was with. It was like as a notion, how that was again. I don't even think that was particularly of the fucking time. Like, even
not at all.
Or was it maybe?
No, not at all. I mean, I have to say, I need to ask you this actually, because maybe I was expecting more misogyny than you were. I mean, I get the impression that it kind of took you by surprise. It didn't. I mean, I knew the it thing was coming. I didn't expect. I mean, at one stage when that poor woman is in the, during the abortion, he slaps her. Like, I mean, I didn't expect that level of sort of just appalling behavior from any character, but I did expect him to be horrible. He was as horrible as I expected, plus a bit. But I get the sense that it took you by surprise a small bit, did it?
It did. Maybe I'm just a naive country boy, Mick, but I didn't expect.
You're just a lovely fella. You're just a lovely lad. You're not used to that kind of carry on.
No, I'm disgusted.
Disgusted. Like, you know what? But you know what we got to do? We got to. And to be fair, and especially because this is about Caine. We got to separate the movie from the actor here. Like, I thought his performance. Like, I have to say, in all the years, and I know we have a lot of films to watch, and I may change this view, but of all the films that I can remember watching Michael Caine in, this is the first one ever that I can say I was not conscious of watching Michael Caine. Does that make sense? That he would this idea that he has himself, that he inhabits characters. He does inhabit this character. Like, he disappears behind this.
Alfie.
Yeah, and I don't think this is certainly the first movie so far where he is definitively the focus of the movie. I mean, he has 90% of the dialogue in the movie. The camera rarely strays from him, so he's entirely the focus of the movie, and he carries it off brilliantly. He is excellent, and he really does disappear into the role. I think it'll be interesting to see if he replicates this kind of performance, because again, you usually see the curse of the Oscar coming when anyone kind of gets it. Well, he didn't win, but this anyway, at least. But he got nominated, and there does tend to be kind of a hyping around that, and you tend to kind of relax the old acting muscles and tend to lean into the slide and not put in that effort. So it'd be interesting to see whether it does like this and Ipcris. I mean, as a pair of movies where he's genuinely acting and he's genuinely putting in the effort and wanting to be good. He talks about thinking that he was doing well in the film until Denham Elliott came into film. See, so Denham Elliott has a cameo as sources the abortionist in this, and
he's
Caine
brilliant.
felt that he had to. He's brilliant, but Caine felt that this is a signal for him to pull up his socks and do even better.
Yeah.
So I mean, all of this awareness and this hunger is still there, and it's just just wonder, will something like this kind of will he push on with this, or will he kind of submit to the dark side in terms of just easing off on the brake or easing off on the accelerator? Sorry.
Alfie was very, very important to me. But when I made it, I thought it was too parochial even to show in America. And what happened when they saw it is they made me do 127 loops of dialogue, which has replaced the dialogue, so that, because I'd done it with a very thick Cockney accent, so that the Americans could understand it. Because they'd done a Cockney film called Sparrows Can't Sing, Joan Littlewood, and they'd shown it at the Lincoln Center with subtitles in New York. I didn't want any movie of mine going out with subtitles. Yeah, Alfie would be the one, Alfie was the most important picture I ever made, really, because without that, I wouldn't have the rest of them.
If we were in 1966 now, and we've watched this film, we've come out, we're going, this is the birth of an amazing talent here. We've seen something amazing, because he's just completely inhabits it. You're dead right. He's clearly like lost in the thing. I mean, number one, it's a role that fits in terms of it being a Cockney. It allows him just to speak. You can tell he's drawing on things. You can just tell from the way he's talking. He's so comfortable with the dialogue. I read in one of his autobiographies that he knew the script back to front. Like he wanted this so bad. Maybe this was because he actually auditioned for Alfie, the stage play, and he says it was the worst audition he ever did. He just completely messed the line up. Obviously didn't get the part. It actually went to Terence Stamp, who was his flatmate at the time. That Alfie stage play went to Broadway. It was a flop. And when it came to making the movie, Stamp didn't want to go near it. But they went through a lot of people before they got to Caine. It's hard to imagine anyone else doing it, really. But there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But he, the fourth wall bit, I thought, again, for a guy, fronting up a movie, I know Ipcris was his first front up, but this was his movie. To take on the idea of the fourth wall and to make that work as well, and to deliver it in such a kind of an intimate way to the audience, these kind of little soliloquies about what he was thinking, I thought it was really, really good.
Well, he worked on that with the director to make sure that they were, to get the camera right up close to them, so the audience felt as if they were complicit in it and part of it, which unfortunately worked a treat. I thought it was interesting because I did a quick Jimmy Google on breaking the fourth wall in movies, and I thought that the first instance of the fourth wall being broken was in a 1918 movie called Men Who I Have Made Love To.
Okay.
Which I think was Mary or Martha McLean, the author of the script, basically plays a woman, a very sex positive woman, who I think there's like 6 vignettes where she, falls in love but comes out on top in all of those situations. I thought there's an interesting parallel to Alfie.
Yeah.
Fucking 40 years on, and you have all these submissive women in a movie in the so-called sexual revolution of the 20th century, back in 1918, a couple of years after our pro boys nailed the proclamation to the front of the GPO by that a woman was proudly declaring herself to be, don't to play. It was,
it's interesting. It's very interesting. And like the thing is that, it's a discussion for another podcast, but I don't think you have to dig too deeply into the sexual revolution of the 60s to find an incredible layer of misogyny that was going on through that whole thing. It was free love, but on our terms, like on male terms, but that's maybe for another day. But yeah, I thought he carried it off really, really well. You could see why he was nominated for an Oscar. He actually didn't even travel to the Oscars. He didn't fancy he was going to win it. Paul Scofield won it for A Man for All Seasons. He played Thomas More. Which I've seen, but I don't remember being a great movie. Yeah, it's very long and kind of dragged along. Yeah, I actually, you know what? Again, accepting that the movie itself is a bit of a curate's egg in lots of ways. I would like to see the other performances from that year that Caine didn't get an Oscar for this, because I thought he was superb. He, to the point, like when you think about it, like he spent most of his life, well, certainly up to a certain age anyway, kind of explain to people that I'm not Alfie, Well,
it's the whole breaking the fourth wall has stuck to him like a fucking like a barnacle to the hull of a ship all through his career. Yeah. It's the thing. If you're to lazy impressionists, to the most accomplished impressionists of Caine, his sketch will always do the breaking the fourth wall thing, because that was so definitively a thing that he did.
Yeah. No, he made it his own. This was it, So yeah, the director was Lewis Gilbert, who also directed him in Educating Rita, which is another Oscar nomination, So but a big long gap between those movies.
Also directed Moonraker.
Yeah. No, you're more of a Bond guy than I am. Where would you put Moonraker in that particular canon?
Moonraker is in the top 5 worst.
Top 5 worst. Right.
God off. Oh, it's god awful.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple of stars from Alfie end up in that. I think Harry, the guy in the sanatorium, is in Moonraker playing consumptive man.
Okay. Oh, really? Consumptive man.
Real
having been
real typecasting.
Having been chesty man in this one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, his wife in this film, Vivian Merchant, she plays Elise. She's absolutely superb. She really
great.
Is. She's fantastic. But is there anything else we want to touch on here? Like, I mean, I find it's funny. I mean, hopefully in these podcasts we'll find a bit more kind of to kind of poke fun at and have a bit of a laugh around. This is a very hard film, even though it's a comedy, to actually.
Yeah, we're not exactly going to be all edgelord and do fucking, like hard-edged comedy about the abortion scene. It's not. It's a fucking really grim and real hard-going aspect of the film. It comes right. You go on about tonal shifts in the film. I don't think I've ever come across one. I mean, considering it was supposed to be a comedy, it's hard to think an audience wouldn't have just suffered from fucking whiplash watching this in the movie theaters back in 1966. Even now, you're kind of going, wait, the what now?
What he did? What he just hit her there? What?
Yeah.
Did he just say that to her? Yeah, it's unbelievable stuff, some of it. What was your thing about something about smoking or something to do?
Oh, yeah. I try to match you fact for fact. Well, no, I don't actually, but occasionally I will occasionally get a couple of facts. Caine maintains that he learned what he says in his autobiography, never to smoke, but clearly he smokes another. But he said he smoked in one long shot in this where he had a dialogue, I think, with Shelley Winters in it, and then they went in for the close up, and he learned that you have to match everything. So he did over 100 takes in order to get it right, and it broke his heart so much that he swore.
Yeah. Just to remind listeners, how does that fit into the Caine anecdote template?
Nobody famous involved, but I got to follow up my second fact now, which involves somebody famous. So Jane Asher, who some listeners may remember, an actress in her own right, but obviously during the 60s was more known for being Paul McCartney's girlfriend. But she was seeing McCartney at the time, so it was in 1966, so this was when Sgt. Pepper's...
They were together about 3 years at this stage. He was actually living in her parents' house. He wrote, a lot of Beatles songs were written in Jane Asher's parents' loft.
Yeah, so there's a scene in this where Alfie gets out of bed after Jane Asher's character starts crying after they've had sex, and in the original scene she gets up and she's wearing one of Alfie's shirts, but Paul McCartney was unhappy with the amount of flesh that was on show.
Really?
So I had a chat with the producers and the director, and they agreed to lengthen the shirt. So if you see it, the shirt, as Caine says, the shirt basically would make him to be about 8 foot tall. They could lengthen the shirt that much to make sure that her modesty. Her modesty in the movie about the misogynist who gets an abortion and slaps the patient, her modesty is maintained.
I find it interesting that Macca was watching the rushes. That's interesting in itself. But he went to New York around this time. Again, this is the promo trip. This is it just takes off at such a rate. So this is the start of fame. He goes to Elaine's, which is a famous restaurant in New York, and knocks over Woody Allen's wine glass. He stands on Ursula Andress's foot, showing all the trademark suave sophistication of Harry Palmer. Actually, when you think about it, goes in and steps on the foot of the most beautiful woman in the room.
I guess he's hopefully made enough of an impression of Woody Allen from the cast of Manhattan and her sisters. I don't know.
Yeah, well there you go. I suppose that was the beginning of a friendship.
This made a bomb, though, didn't it? It wasn't just a critical success, it was a commercial success as well, though.
Well, according to very loose internet sources, this, roughly speaking, in modern money, would have cost you $800,000 to make, and it made $18 million. This was, we talk about a global phenomenon. I don't know what the comparison would be now, but this was ginormous.
It just goes to show, it doesn't, just because a movie is popular doesn't necessarily mean, we already know that. I mean, your fucking Avatar is now again the highest grossing movie in the world, a movie with fucking Smurfs with pituitary gland problems going around the fucking forest, molesting fucking other animals with their fucking hair penises.
There's a touch of Alfie about that too, actually. But like it does. Okay, but it just I suppose it just copper fastens the aura around the film and this idea that it is a classic. But like I think really and this, as we said there a little while ago, this affected Caine as well, having to try to distance himself from the character. Like, there's an interesting piece written by Mark Lawson, the critic, a good few years ago now. But he was making the point that even though the message of the film may have been that in truth, Alfie's life was completely empty and ultimately pointless. He was left alone. He didn't have his son. He didn't have any relationships. Everybody had walked away from him by the end. That this is the product of this kind of life. That in actual fact, the message for most men in the 60s watching would have been, this is the fantasy male. This guy isn't handsome. He's wearing an appalling jacket with some kind of a crest on it. He's getting all these women to fall at his feet and basically be a mother and a lover to him, whichever he wants at any particular stage. And that this, it would have had a very negative effect. And when you consider the amount of business it did, it's on all levels, this movie has not aged well at all. When you consider the impact it may have had.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the overarching theme of this movie isn't that strong in order for it to hit home with audiences. But let's face it, young men aren't exactly great in picking up on the nuances of a movie where this kind of life is portrayed. It's all about, oh yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, everything seems to be going reasonably swimmingly until the last 20. No big American star. Shelley Winters was the big American star, and she actually gets second billing, even though she's nowhere near the kind of the second star. There's an interesting little one about those two, herself and Caine. When it came to the first scene with them, it was filmed in the Dorchester Hotel. They met in the corridor, and he hadn't met her before, and she essentially propositioned him. She says, I proposition all my leading men just to get that tension out of the way before I have sex with all my leading men, I should say, before we just get all that tension out of the way before we shoot. And he kind of didn't know where to look. And the next thing she starts roaring, laughing, and kind of flounces off down the hall, leaving Caine shaken to the...
Oh, it's shaken and confused.
Very confused. So yeah, I mean, what else do we want to say? Anything else?
I'll trump you now, since I hated the movie so much. I'm just going to throw out fucking anecdotes, really. When he was doing a take with Shelley Long, or Shelley Long,
poor Shelley Long.
That would have been an entirely different movie with Shelley Winters. She was drinking from a glass of water, and during one of the takes, he went over because he was thirsty, took a sip, and found out it was pure. It was neat vodka.
Hey, oh!
He was asking, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm acting, darling."
While getting smashed, this is what I need to get through this.
To be fair, she's having watched the movie. I think I would need to be smashed in order to watch it again. I'd never seek this out again. And the notion of watching Jude Law playing some sort of watered down as it might be metrosexual version of Alfie transplanted to New York is even less appealing.
Yeah, Caine didn't fancy that remake at all. Actually, he kind of thought that Jude Law's his rendition of Alfie was a bit too intelligent, a bit too street smart compared to the original Alfie.
He sang Alfie.
He what?
His rendition of Alfie. He sings the song of the movie as well. That's a bit...
I don't know. What am I saying? You know what I mean? He's acting part to play Alfie.
His portrayal. His portrayal.
There you go. This
is what your editor has to do with all your stuff on a Saturday evening, yeah?
I'm on probation every single week. I have a guy, just constant. I've got a guy on my shoulder going, "Nah, you can't use all those words. Just use this one right one."
You've used hurlball again. I presume he means litter.
Hurlball, yeah. So yeah, he's like, he didn't fancy it. Your man's portrayal of him was just too streetwise, too street smart, and I vaguely remember seeing the remake of Alfie, and I think it kind of ends up a bit neater for him at the end, if my memory serves me right. I don't care. There was a sequel. Have you ever seen the sequel to this, Alfie Darling, in the mid 70s? This was proper Confessions of
Alfie 2 Sexual Boogaloo.
Yeah, this was pure Confessions of a psychotic nymphomaniac with serious dad issues type of thing. It was a proper sex comedy kind of thing with lots of kind of ooh or misses. But again, I saw bits of it, and again, not a laugh. I actually saw it was pure Robin Asquith stuff. Robin Asquith wasn't in it, but it was that kind of genre. I even saw, do you know what? I was even watching The Fast Show, an episode of The Fast Show the other night from like 25, 30 years ago, whatever. And they had like a piss take on those Confessions of, kind of did a skit on it. And even watching the skit on the Confessions of, it wasn't funny. They're just, I don't know where the humour to be mind in this is. Maybe it's just not for me. But I have to say, I did find the film compelling. I did find Denham Elliott's brilliant in it. Vivian Merchant is brilliant in it. Caine is brilliant in it. But just the whole film itself is just so far off where we are now, I think. It's just very, very hard to get your head around it.
Yeah. Will we bring it home anyway and do the Mark of the Caine?
Yeah. What would you give him? So, and just to clarify for people, like, you know, we've just gone through that movie like a dose of salt. But when we're giving these Caine marks, it is for his performance more so than the movie. So what would you give him?
Give him a 9.
Yeah. I'm the same. Like, Ipcris and this, for me, are both 9s. He's absolutely brilliant in it. He looks the part. Every single move. Do you notice that he walks without moving his arms in this?
I didn't. No.
Complete no move. And it sounds ridiculous, but and I know you're not going to go back and look at this again, but for anybody who hasn't watched this film, who is going to watch it, I think him not moving his arms actually makes him look even more of a
Alfie.
He just kind of shifty or something, or there's something completely fake about not moving your arms when you're walking, and it's just when you see it in the film.
Like, this is another Caine thing where it's just like it makes you look weak if you move. Real men don't move their arms; they just, they open doors with their shoulders. They eat with their legs.
Yeah.
So you moving your arms portrays weakness. Don't do it.
I think it might be something along those lines. All right. I mean, again, you go back to your theory that you introduced to the world about the de-gayification of Michael Caine. I don't think anything like Alfie.
No, this just puts it to bed, essentially, doesn't it? If you excuse a pun that's on a par with the comedy in this movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It more or less, it should kill it stone dead, but we will find out. There is more.
Only a real heterosexual man would treat women like absolute fucking dirt.
Apparently so. That's the lesson that I learned. Let's walk away from Alfie. Well done on the Oscar nomination, Michael Caine. Well done on a brilliant performance, but good God.
Yeah. At what cost? At what cost?
Our next movie is... I don't know a lot about this. You know slightly more about this movie than I do, I think. Do you?
Yeah, and again, this is The Wrong Box, which isn't actually the sequel to Alfie, even though it does sound as if it could be.
There is not a lust box to be seen in this film.
Well, with some much needed real comedy this time anyway. We're going on to, The Wrong Box, which is apparently called The Delightful Farce, and if that doesn't make you want to swallow your own tongue, then you really haven't been listening.
No, we're going forward now. We're going forward. Look, he has just performed the 2 roles that essentially make his career for the next 60 years. You could almost say. And now, so let's see what happens next. He's an Oscar nominee. He picks The Wrong Box. We are, to be fair,
you really kind of set up the proper segue. Next up, Michael Caine and The Wrong Box. Join us next week to see if he picked the wrong film.
Yeah,
want to try that? Yeah,
that's
try to do that. Because you could. No. Yeah, that's no. Go on, try that. You'll be good at that.
No.
You got a great voice for that.
No,
you got your broadcasting voice that you use for the intro. You could use that.
No, it's fine. I only use that for the intro. I've only got a limited supply of broadcasting voice, and I'm all out. Actually, one last thing should be said. Of course, this is a massive strike for the working class actor as well, being able to use his own accent. So I will be curious to see, do we see this accent now much more going forward? Is this how it's going to be, particularly in the 60s period?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for working class people to be portrayed as upper class people.
Yeah. That is ultimately the effect, all right. But look, it's done. We've come through Alfie. We've survived, come out the other side. Again, well done, Michael Caine, on a great performance. Commiserations on the movie. Go watch The Wrong Box. Come back to us for the next episode. We're going to go and find him. It's going to be easy to find on the internet. All these films are, to be fair, so far. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. And again, if you want to ask us any questions about The Wrong Box, if you're leading a full and rounded life, you can hit us individually up on Twitter or follow at Mark of Caine 2. As usual, fuck you, Mark of Caine 1.
Yeah, we're going to find those guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
What are you waiting for? Come on.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. Maybe leave a comment. Only nice ones, though. Mean comments will make Alfie cry, and no one wants to see that. The Mark of Caine podcast is written, researched, and presented by Stephen Black and Michael Foley, and edited by Andrew Foley. Music is composed by Stephen Black. If you'd like to get in touch, you'll find us on Twitter at Mallow News and at Mark of Caine 2. And if you enjoyed this episode, you'll find all the rest wherever you get your podcasts. The Mark of Caine is a Malo News 2 Cubes production. See you next time.